Most of us don't think much about what's under our feet. When we look down, we see the ground, and then we look up again so we don't walk into lampposts. My next guests look down and see infinite possibility. They see hard work, they see dirty work, they see a lifetime. They're miners. Please welcome from Dapto, coal miner Freddie Moore. Do you ever get the sense of the ground closing in, or did you?
Only when it was closing in, yes, many a time, Andrew. And it'd close in all right, and sometimes the floor would come up to meet the roof and everything else. It's a different environment of mining in coal mining than it is in other types of mining, even hard rock mining, and I've done a little bit of that. But it's vastly different. You've got to contest with gas and methane and blowouts and everything. You don't know what's coming all the time. You've got to have utmost vigilance. So it's certainly, it grows on you, I suppose, but it's certainly not good to get down. It's always better to get out.
Freddie, you're 82. How old were you when you first went down the coal mine?
You had to be 16 years of age, but Andrew, when I started work in 1936, they were hard times, mate, and people wasn't working. Most of the mines were shut anyhow, they hadn't opened, and they'd been closed during the Depression. So I went out to Cobar and started work out there, where I was born actually, in around about 1936 when I was 14 years of age.
Freddie, can you give us some sense of what it is to work an 8-hour shift underground in the coal mine?
Yeah, well, in the earlier days, the miners worked with different lights. We were lucky. These are only a small light, of course, but they had proper sealed lights. But in the earlier days, they only had like a little naked flame, but not so much in the southern district because it was explosive areas and had blown up. But they're still silly enough to use them right up nearly to the end of the 20s. In my time, the lights had become more sophisticated, and we had like a proper spotlight, and
Sure.
That was your whole thing. That's all there was. There was nothing else. It's not lit up, and you may be 4 mile under the ground working with that sort of thing, you know. And
so
that's
your whole world is that little bit of
That's your whole
illumination.
thing. If that gives out, you're in a lot of bother. You've got to rely on your mate, and that's why you work in pairs. It's intense dark, and you could never imagine how dark it is. It's creaking all the time. In lots of places, dripping water, and it's alive with rats. The ventilation is sometimes foul and bad, and you've got to get in fresh air, and if you're away from the ventilation shaft, it's very, very difficult to get there. Sometimes can be mixed up with shot fire and fumes and other dust and stuff that is there, and so you've got to make do with what you got. You've got an intake airway and what they call a return airway going back to the ventilation shafts. But if they're a long way away and the air is very, very sluggish, and it's very, very dangerous, and you do find gas and all other things.
You've got hardly any illumination in pitch blackness, sometimes very little air, often mixed with coal dust. You've got rats everywhere.
They follow you around, and they come up, and they come in following the horses after the food and the droppings of the horses.
And how hard a slog was it over an 8-hour shift? It's a very physical job.
In the earlier days, as soon as you stopped the pick and shovel, your wages stopped. It was a sort of a contract system. Safety was the cardinal principle. One error could be fatal, and this was the thing, and you never get a second chance.
I want to get back to safety later. This whole interview's starting to close in on me. If we could take the hats off. Is it appropriate to be fearful when you go underground, to be aware?
Oh, of course it is, because if you're just thick-headed, you've got to treat everything it is. It's very, very dangerous, and you've got to watch it, as I said, because the old sayings was that the miner, once he went underground, he never knew if he was going to walk out, get carried out, or get blown out, and that was pretty near to the mark that the old timers would pass on to you, you know. You don't make mistakes because you can get your mate killed as well. Where I worked was only a couple of 100 yards away from the Mount Kembla mine, and that blew up and killed 96 men through a naked light. We all worked on the one thing. The only difference was it was a different seam. We worked on the number 3 and they worked on the number 2 seam. But we got methane gas and carbon dioxide outbursts and all these sort of things, and just one bang and the whole pit could be gone, blow the top off the mountains. Coal miners have always been to the forefront in the struggles for workers' rights and the community rights, and I've always been proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with the miners. But you must understand as well, Andrew, that the women played a wonderful role in the mining industry. There's the Miners' Women's Auxiliaries and they back the men. They're the courageous ones. They sort of never give up, the blokes. They get them off to work and they've got to wait if there's a whistle blows that there's a fall, a disaster, or someone's been fatally injured, and they've got to live with all that. So when we talk of the mining industry and going underground and that, the women are the vital part of it. They're the strength of the Miners' Federation. In years gone by, they set up all these auxiliaries and they worked shoulder to shoulder with the men and never wavered and never give up. And I have a great admiration for them, and a lot of the older ones have passed on now, but they played every bit of a role, and that's why I was always proud to be associated with people like that, and men at the pit, the principle, and that was it. And if someone was down and out or overlooked, the miners would rally to them straight away, and the hat would go around in the earlier days, and they were the first to put in. And they led the way. They were the vanguard of the people at one stage, and it could only be done with the great strength of the women backing the men, because if the women didn't back the men, well, it was so more disadvantaged to push the struggle up a little bit further. So
it's a very generous thing to say. You're a union man and have been all your life, and your family are all union people. How important is the union to your community?
The union is everything. It's the lifeblood of the thing. Without the union, there would be no safety factors. There would be no first aid equipment. There'd be no bathhouses, long service leave. All these things had to be won. Nothing was ever given benevolently. And in lots of cases, the miners paved the way and backed other unions, backed them to, if they could break through, the miners could break through, there was a chance for the others. So the union is the lifeblood, and is still today. And that's why I can't understand when I hear of pits and other places where there's non-union labour, because without the union, that's nothing. You won't survive, and the union is everything for the community, and this is the thing. United you stand, divided you fall. The old miners would take big banners and they'd go on the streets with them, and great pride, you know, not a minute on the day, not a penny off the pay. What's been won must be retained, and unity is strength. Those old slogans that the old timers won these conditions with is every bit as valid today, and that's why people enjoy long service leave. They enjoy better conditions through them old people and us that plodded up and down the street, lost time, called rat bags and everything else. But without the union, nothing would have ever been attained, and people would still be working a 50-hour week. As far as the transnationals are concerned, you'd work 100 hours a week if they get their way for very minimum wages. But we always seen a fair go for all, and that was it. The union was strength. Still going out on the picket line tomorrow to help the Alara miners in Wollongong who are on a picket line to try and save their bit of thing off a big company like Billington that's come in to try and exploit the workers' bit of hard-won conditions, and they're out there on a picket line, and I back them, and so does the union.
I wouldn't want to take you on, Freddie.
So it wouldn't be much now.
I don't think so. How did you deal with scabs?
Well, to start with, the scabs, in my lifetime, there wasn't many around. They'd cleaned them out a bit and whitewashed them and brought them back into the industry. The miners had to work with them in other places, and but they have thrown rotten turkey eggs at them and other things, the older timers. But I like I don't even mention the word. I think they're pretty crude. A man, anyone that'll come in and take a man's hard-won conditions, and that poor bloke might have a family and everything, and take his job and work for less and do other things, well, nah, I haven't got much going for that sort of bloke. What a lot of people don't understand is that a few years ago there was 186 coal-owned miners in New South Wales. Some were only called rat holes, bits of miners, but they're getting bits of coal and that out of them. But today you deal with the transnationals. The miners today are under entirely different pressure. They're dealing with offshore cartels who make their decisions for the Australian miners in the boardrooms of London, New York, Tokyo, the Bahamas or somewhere else. And then they come out here and try and bring the same conditions that they enforce in South Africa or somewhere else onto the Australian miners. And all we get out of it, we might get a bit of wages and that, they might get a bit of royalty, but mainly the Australian people only get the holes in the ground, and that's about all they'll get left with these people. And they'll try and take every bit of conditions that the miners have won, and not only miners but every worker. They've extended the hours from 7 to 12, and how anyone can say that they can work 12 hours comfortably underground and that, it's nearly impossible. But they're forced with it with industrial laws and everything else by these joint cartels who have come here, and they're predators. They roam the earth to take all the mineral resources and with sympathetic governments give it to them, and in the process of that they give them the people's lives as well, because their homes are broken, they're trying to pay high mortgages, they're trying to keep up with things, and where do they finish? They throw them on the scrap heap like they've tried to throw the miners that we're going out to try and protect tomorrow. So we've got to understand that the big cartels don't bring work, don't bring jobs or industry. They come for one reason, to rip, tear and drag Australia's mineral resources, and when that's gone, they're gone, and you can go to anywhere you like from then on. So I've seen it, and I've seen a lifetime of it.
There's a Midnight Oil lyric which says, "Who can stand in the way when there's a dollar to be made? This is now the way of the world."
Exactly, that's the way it's going.
How do you ever turn that back, or is that not possible?
Well, the union is organised and they've got things, and they're not getting all their own way, and the workers are gradually clutching back again. There's other people that fight. You've seen the MUA picket line where they come on with dogs and done everything and tried to push them out, but they fought back and they had to give ground. And this is the thing, the same as the miners. They've had picket lines for months. They've done everything. They never give in. And if you give in, you're gone, mate. And this is the whole thing. You fight on and fight on. And the union today is a powerful organisation in the miners, the CMFMEU, mining and energy and other things, and they're well geared for struggle, and they've got plenty of people around them that support them, and we can do without the millionaires, but they can't do without us, mate.
Workers united will never be defeated. Workers united will never be defeated.
It's our union that defends our rights, but our union's as strong as our will is to fight. For the union is you,